last night. So I should go. Morning.
Morning.
This is my statement.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good. Really nice.
I like how his mailbox is full out.
Should I show it again?
Morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. Good morning. A little breakfast. I'll get there at some point.
Puppy.
I feel like it's always on forever.
We got our dog with the cone and took it off. We're like, nah, you need to breathe.
There were never any issues on that?
But the cone was like too big, like he couldn't drink water. So like we got him and he was just so dehydrated. What's wrong? Do you guys mind telling me troubles?
I would not.
There's stuff going on that shouldn't be going on. Look at this. I only get this out on special occasions. I forget what I had to buy to get this free. Isn't it cute?
It is really cute.
I have to show it off. Don't make me get my wheelie thing out. Because I have 2 gigs today. This is just number 1.
What you should do is
Wants to go off on Pima County.
you should do a call to the public for every item. Then you'd have like a half hour to
Well, I don't understand. I can't talk about stuff I don't understand.
Yeah, true.
I mean, I probably could for 3 minutes and make you think, you know, what they say, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance. I got me Susie Shields. Putting her on a short leash. I'm watching, and she doesn't even know. One of them has cornballs, but I can't place that in time. My town. My elders, since we're all old down there, shouldn't be driving. I'm going to get those numbers from Mr. Kufari, and I will thank you. And how much for your time.
We like to help. We like to help.
You really had me there, you know? I had to turn to the youth. Being my bid to the tomorrow's generation's doing this. I mean, I was up there and didn't know a mouse. But it gave me my Barbie story. Engineer Barbie. Gotta quit being so silly sometimes. If I wasn't having some fun here, I would be doing this.
The point of life is to have fun.
Broke that one. Good morning. I want to welcome you to today's board meeting, May 20th. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Carroll. Supervisor Elias.
Presented.
Supervisor Miller. Here. Supervisor Melodette.
Present.
Chair Bronson.
Here.
Let the record show all members are present.
Please rise now for the invocation to be offered by Father Emilio Chapa of St. Augustine Cathedral and the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Supervisor Elias.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we ask your abundant blessings to be upon all of us, especially upon this board as they deliberate today's issues. And we ask that we may act with true justice and love towards all, for you have loved us each, and you call us to respect the sacredness of each person. And we just thank you for the service of this board, and we ask that you continue to be with them and guide them with your spirit. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We're doing pause for pause, and officer, who do we have today? We have LB.
Good
Now you
morning.
got to tell me what those initials stand for.
I believe it stands for Lover Boy.
Okay. And he is in fact a PCIC dog. This fella, he's got his cone on today because he was recently neutered. That will only stay on him for a week post-surgery. So he was neutered on the 18th, so another 5 days for that. I did not want to wait for another week to bring him down here without the cone because actually you guys don't have a meeting next week and it would be several more weeks. He's been waiting since January 10th for a home, so I didn't want to delay that any further. He is a wonderful dog, very sweet. He was owned by a gal who worked 2 jobs and simply didn't have the time for him. And so he started to chew up things in the yard and she became frustrated with that. He was already frustrated with being alone. And so she did the right thing and brought him in to find another home for him because it just wasn't fair to anybody involved. He is wonderful though. We have an Officer Webster with us who's been kind enough to spend all of her free time working with him and spending time with him and making sure he's getting all of his needs met. He is about 3 years old. And like I said, he's already been neutered, so he's pretty much ready to go. He's been microchipped and his first round of shots. So we open at noon today. He'll be ready to go as soon as you can get there. His adoption fee's been waived, so it's only the $15 licensing fee that gets him out the door. He's about a 57-pound dog, so be prepared for a larger dog. I'm not sure exactly how much he's going to eat, but I have a larger dog myself, and $10 a week-ish to feed that size dog. He's a great dog though, and I feel terrible that he's been waiting since January and all of the nice spring weather has gone by and he's just sitting waiting for a home. He's our longest resident. I'd like to get him out before anybody else goes. He's done his time and needs to be in a forever home. But do be prepared for this dog. If you or someone you know is interested in this dog, make sure that you're going to have the time to spend with him because he definitely deserves it. And as do all of our animals, they deserve somebody that's willing to invest some time in them and give them the attention that they need. And he is young enough where he's going to have some energy and want to have some walks and some playing with the ball time. But he is very relaxed. I've had him with me all morning and he was happy to just sit down next to me at the computer and just quietly wait. He hasn't made a sound yet as far as barking, so he doesn't seem to be a very vocal dog. But as you can see, despite the e-collar on him, he is quite handsome. And he would make a fantastic addition to any home that's willing and ready to meet his needs. And I'm sure he would make a fantastic companion for anybody who's willing to commit to him. He'll commit right back. So other animals right now are $30, plus we have our Mayflower discount where you pick a petal off of one of our flowers and it has a discount on it of $10, $15 off of the adoptions. But again, $15 licensing fee for him gets him out the door, and that includes everything with him, including this fancy collar that he gets to wear until next Sunday. So please, if you have interest in a dog or know somebody that does, this is a fantastic dog that I'm really hoping we can get out of there as quickly as possible. He's been waiting since January, so it's 5 long months that he's been waiting, and he wants to go home today, or yesterday.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Carroll.
Madam Chair, if anyone were so inclined to give Loverboy a new home, I'd like to replace the cone of shame with a really suitable, I mean, the officer in charge was worried that this might be a weapon, but it's not. It's a cool collar for a nice, genuine Loverboy. And also to go with Loverboy, if you take him today, and only today, and there's a sale going on, is a nice homemade box of doggy treats in a nice can, and a float the freight. Everything goes with Loverboy today, and it's in memory of Guapito. That was Father Chapo's dear friend. Father Gonzalo had lost his little Chihuahua by a car accident at St. Augustine's just about a month ago. And we'd love Guapito's spirit to live in Loverboy, and I'll pay the freight.
Thank you so
all
much.
those treats go with it.
Thank you.
So let's see it. Who wants it?
We're not moving on till we
If you
have.
lock the doors, the doors are locked. Joe Soto. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, moving. All right. Moving on to item 5, presentation and proclamation to Nancy Cole and Joe Soto, proclaiming the week of May 18th through 24th to be Public Works Week. I'll move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second. Objections? Hearing none. Supervisor Carroll will do the presentation to Nancy and Joe. Nancy and Joe, are we here somewhere? There you are.
Whereas the week of May 18th through the 24th has been designated as National American Public Works Week, celebrating the thousands of public works professionals who provide and maintain our infrastructure and deliver our public works services by honoring the theme, Building for Today, Planning for Tomorrow. And whereas National Public Works Week was first celebrated in 1960, and thus, this is the 54th anniversary of this recognition, and whereas facilities and services could not be provided without the efforts of our public works professionals, engineers, and administrators who represent the highest standards of professional conduct as they administer land use planning, sustainability and conservation plans, and design, build, and operate and maintain transportation, water supply and sewage collection, treatment and disposal systems, solid waste management, floodplain management and flood control, parks, recreation centers, natural resources management, fleet management, public buildings, and other facilities and services needed to address our citizens' everyday needs. And whereas the support and cooperation of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation and maintenance of our public works systems, capital improvement projects and programs that deal with parks, sewers, solid waste disposal, streets and highways, flood control facilities, development services, preservation of cultural and historic resources, and real property acquisition and management. Now therefore be it resolved that Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims the week of May 18th, 2014 through May 24th, 2014 to be Public Works Week throughout Pima County, and urges all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works organizations and to recognize the invaluable contributions that public works officials and professionals make to the infrastructure they build and maintain every day to sustain our comfort, health, and well-being in support of our quality of life, passed and adopted this 20th of May, 2014. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Today we have Joe Soto is the future president of the Southern Arizona branch of the APWA, and I'm the past president of the local branch. We both work for Pima County, and we're very grateful to be recognized for this. The APWA exists to develop and support people, agencies, and organizations that plan, build, maintain, and improve our communities. Working together, APWA and its membership contribute to a higher, sustainable quality of life. Recent award-winning projects, such as the Pima County Tres Rios Water Reclamation Plant and the joint RTA City of Tucson Sunlink Streetcar, both of which are the agency's largest single projects ever, are each examples of projects that improve the health, safety, environment, and economic vitality of the Pima County region as a whole. Thank you again. We also have some stress relievers.
You got another voice out.
Oh.
Thrown it into the pack.
I want to thank you again for recognizing public works and the importance in the community.
I hope this doesn't portend what the meeting's going to be.
Thank you very much, Nancy.
Thank you.
You know, Madam Chair, I did want to make one more comment on this
Supervisor
particular item
Williams.
because I think it is important to say this on this day because we celebrate this every year. But there is something each and every one of us in this room can do regarding this subject. And you know, Public Works Day, right? Doesn't sound like there's anything we can do, but there is. And that's to be particularly careful when you're driving and you see our employees out there on the street. Those are Public Works employees, whether they're working for wastewater, whether they're working for transportation, whether they're contract employees to Pima County or not. Please drive safely. You'd be amazed how many workers are injured in car accidents while they're out there on the streets. Just something to be thoughtful about and to teach your kids to be thoughtful about as they're learning how to drive. You really need to be careful. These folks are out there exposed in the harshest elements, I dare say, in probably most of the states. But it's just something for all of us to think about as we drive by and appreciate the work that they do and be careful so that they get to go home and be with their families at night, just like the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Elias. All right, we are now going to move on to item 6, tentative budget hearing. And I actually want to open up all the hearings, both for Flood Control District Board, the Improvement District Boards, Library District Board, Stadium District Board, and then, of course, the total county budget and the debt service budget as well. So if there are no objections on the dais, we will open all those hearings now. And with that, I will turn to Mr. Huckleberry to brief us a little bit before we go to the speakers.
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the board, we transmitted the tentative budget, the proposed budget for next year, to you on April 28th of this year. And in that budget, we discussed a lot of different needs and particular issues associated with the county budget. What I'd like to do, and I transmitted 2 memorandums to you yesterday, and I'm going to go over the slides that were in one of those memorandums that deals with the position of the county budget and where we are and how we got here and where we're going from here. The second memorandum I transmitted to you were a number of different requests from employee organizations related to compensation or any compensation adjustment that would be considered by the board for next year. So let me go over these slides. There's been a lot of discussion, and these are also contained in the memorandum I transmitted yesterday with regard to the overall county budget and budget position. And as you can see, the expenditure component of our budget has been declining over the years. It is now at about $1.2 billion if you just round up. It was closer to approximately $1.5 billion back in 07-08. It's declined almost $300 million over the period, and that's about a 20% reduction. And it comes largely from 2 items. The first item is that over the same time period, we reduced county employment by about 1,200 employees over the period. In addition to that, we have divested ourselves in the early years, or the years of this particular chart, in 7, 8, and 9, of the remaining components of direct medical care delivery, either nursing home or a plan. So and I think the other item that contributed to it is the years of 7, 8, and 9 were really fairly high capital intensive years with regard to bond authorizations that have been received by the county in 2004 and 2006. Next slide, please. This particular slide shows the general fund, and you have to remember the general fund of Pima County. Very often we hear a lot of governments talk about core services and what are core services. If you look at our general fund, it pretty much defines core services. But for the county, many people think, well, Parks and Rec's a core service and transportation's a core service. Well, in the case of a county and what services counties deliver to the region, frankly, our core services are justice and law enforcement. They compose about 60% of our general fund. And as we get further into the discussion with regard to increases, those increases are driven mostly by the justice and law enforcement departments or agencies, that include the sheriff and the courts and the public defenders, legal defenders, and contract attorneys, prosecutors, etc. What you see with this is the strategy that has been adopted since the beginning of the recession, typically in our case, the sharp decline in property tax basis, 9/10, and the strategy was adopted basically is to allow the tax collection from the primary property tax to actually decline over time, because in anticipation of the slowdown and the decline of the property tax base, and we always have 2 years notice, because what happens is our tax base responds to the market with a 2-year lag. So we began building the fund balances of the county's general fund back in 2007, and by about 2010-9, the fund balances had reached a peak of about $78 million over that time. And what we began then to do is allow the actual property tax levy to decline. We then offset the difference in dollars with the planned reduction of the fund balance. And reduction is the key word, not depletion. And so we're at a point in 2014, as you can see, at $32 million fund balance, projected to go even lower when we adopt the budget for next year. But that's about as low as we want to go. If you look at the collections of primary property tax, you look at in 2010 at about $298 million, and today actual what will be collected from the levy is about $267 million. About a $30 million reduction over that particular time frame. Next slide, please. We've talked a lot about the library district, and the library district slide looks a little different than the general fund because of the merger with the library system in 2006 and 2007 in the city. When we took over the system, we doubled the tax rate in that particular year, and anticipation of unknown expenses that would occur because of the consolidation. Those never really happened. So what we did is we built up a fairly significant fund balance again in the library district, and you can see in 2010 it was $17 million, or basically 50% of the levy, and that's not necessary. So again, we've been on a plan to actually reduce the fund balance to a more reasonable level of about $4 million. In 2014, we're probably pretty close to that. And at the same time, the library district is the only budget that is in a planned structural imbalance, which means that we are using the fund balance to keep the tax rate artificially low so we can drop the fund balance down to a reasonable amount. But we have reached the point of where we now have to start building the tax levy of the library district up to reach what we call structural balance. If this year I recommend a 6-cent increase, that'll get us about halfway there. That generates about $4 million. And what we really need to achieve structural balance is a property tax levy out of the library district of about $36 million. And what I've planned and recommended is that we do this over a 2-year period. So the first period is this levy increase in the rate of 6 cents, which increases the levy by $4 million. Next slide, please. The other tax rate that you have control over is the flood control district, and this is another diagram of the flood control district. And the flood control district's levy varies, frankly, in accordance with natural disasters. Flood disasters that occur in Pima County, beginning in, say, 77, and again in 93, again in 2006. And so what we've been in a fairly flood-free environment for the last 4 or 5 years. But everybody forecasts the return of El Nino this fall, so we'll see what happens. And so what we've been doing in the library, in the flood control district, is very similar to the others, having a relatively stable fund balance, drawing it down as we just basically had the capital needs not as great due to the lack of flood disasters. That tax levy reduction of the flood control district just in 4 years is reduced by almost 27%, so that's significant. What I'm proposing is that we begin to put it on an even footing and get prepared, increase that rate by about 4 cents, and that's really for two purposes. The first purpose is that we've had this really mixed, what I call bag of how we maintain our river park system. Part of it is in the natural resources and parks and recreation budget. Part of it is in the flood control district budget. Our river park system is a result of a regulatory requirement of the Clean Water Act, and therefore it is directly tied to the flood control district. What I'm proposing is to take a portion of this 4-cent increase, fund the entire river park maintenance out of it, because it is a flood control obligation, relieving the natural resources and parks and recreation from their typical budget crunch that they're in, and allow them to more adequately maintain our parks. So it's really a strategy to get more money into the natural resources, parks and recreation, but at the same time recognize our legal obligation as a flood control district to maintain the river park system. Next slide, please. Debt service is one that varies and can vary widely over time. The rate and what you see is a fund balance. The fund balance is not very important in debt service because debt service money cannot be used for anything other than the retiring bond indebtedness of the general obligation classification. What you do see is that the levy has actually been reduced over the last 4 years by about 18%. And what that signals is our paying off of the general obligation debt that we've incurred from the 97 bond issue, the 2004 bond issue, and the 2006 bond issue. We are now continuing to pay off debt at anywhere from $50 to $60 million a year, but at this point we aren't issuing any new debt because there's no authorization. So what you see is this is the one tax rate that I recommended an 8-cent drop in, because we can only legally levy what our repayment obligations are based on the issuance of debt. So it's the one that's going down. So in our secondaries, the net increase between 6 cents in the library and 4 cents in flood control, minus 8 cents in debt service is a net 2-cent increase. Next slide, please. This just kind of, really ties the total county budget, all funds, fund balances back to all property taxes collected, both primary and secondary. And again, what you see is the fund balance being built up in anticipation of the Great Recession. During this 5-year period of the Great Recession, a planned reduction in the general fund, and that reduction then allowed the property taxes to actually decline during the period, not increase. What we see is basically over a 4-year period, a drop in property tax collections, aggregate primary and secondary, of nearly $50 million, and a drop in the fund balance from as high as about $145 million to $48 million, all funds. So what we've reached is this point of what we classified and what we talked about from time to time and year to year is a soft landing for the county budget, and we achieved that soft landing. We did not have any significant interruptions to service or delivery of service. We did not have any major layoffs. We did not have any furloughs. And what we've been able to do is keep tax rates artificially low during the recovery period, allowing that money to stay in the private market sector. But we've now landed. So the question is now what do we do? And that's why I recommended to you some increases and increases associated with the primary property tax levy primarily to get us back to stable funding to provide funds for those core services. And got to remember, we think parks are very important, we think roads are very important, but when you look at how counties are structured in Arizona and what our regional obligations are, there are injustice in law enforcement. To give you a few examples of revenues that have to be increased is the last page of my memorandum. I talked about, major components, major pieces of revenue requirements. And if you just look at the justice and law enforcement area, you're looking at the Sheriff's Department requiring another $5.6 million in order to stay balanced. Our contract attorneys and in the defense, $2 million. And we do have to pay for the new consolidated justice court building that will be near completion toward the end of this calendar year. That alone is an additional $12.6 million, or 17 cents on the property tax rate. If you then look at annualized employee benefits and the salary increase, that's another $9.2 million, and it's 12 cents. One of the things that is the great myth that is circulating is that we increased property taxes last year. Well, we tried to increase property taxes last year by $1.2 million in the primary, but when the numbers were all counted and all the receipts coming in, we actually did collect as much. We actually gave another $4.2 million property tax decrease this year, the year before. So to get back to even, to basically say how much revenue what we thought we had, we need to, obviously increase it by $4.2 million. So that's another 6 cents. So if you then look at one of the things that we do in a subject of a discussion today, in an election today, is we run elections in Pima County. And typically elections are what we call, they have peak funding requirements every 2 years because of the general election requirements. And so we see this ebb and flow of our voter registration elections department budgetary obligations cycle every 2 years. And so what we have to do just to meet the obligations of the general election in 2014, which is this November, that's an additional $2.7 million. So when you begin to add all those up, you can see that we're at a decision point. And the decision point was, do we now start increasing? Nobody likes to talk about property tax increases, but I think we also have to be realistic about where we are, how we got here, what the design was, the design work that we have basically achieved, this least harm budget management over the last 3 years, and now it's time to basically decide what we want to do. And I've recommended to you some pretty significant primary property tax rate increases, but that's necessary. It gets us back to maybe, not even where we were in 2010, but it meets our obligations. And in all cases, there are alternatives. And the alternatives to not raising taxes is basically to curtail services and lay off staff. And if you remember, I told you over the last 4 or 5 years, we've reduced 1,200 staff to get a balanced budget without any of the supplementals. We have to basically raise in expense reductions $25 million, and that's basically about 400 employees would be laid off. Since our budget is driven, not as difficult as others in local government, but still 70% personnel services. And so that's my brief opening remarks. And if you have any questions, I would like to spend just 1 minute on the other memorandum, which is employee compensation. We made a recommendation to increase employee compensation again because the recovery is beginning. And we do need to remain competitive, and we also need to reward the employees who have stuck with us during the recessionary period. And I've recommended $750 minimum or 2%, whichever is greater. And that's just, there's nothing magic about that selection. As I've provided information to you, there's another theory that says maybe we ought to basically select a flat rate and give everybody the same thing. That's fine. 50 cents has been talked about. and that 50-cent raise for everyone is about financially equivalent to what I have made a proposal to you. You're also going to hear probably from the courts with regard to market adjustments for certain classifications. That was their request. You also have a letter from the sheriff and the Fraternal Order of Police, the Sheriff's Deputies Association, and the Correction Officers Association requesting a step increase. Well, a step in those plan designs is a 5% increase. So each of those have different fiscal impacts. But again, in setting the tentative budget, you don't have to select one, but you might give us an inclination as to where you would like to go, and we can provide more and more information. What I've said in this budget is that given the fact that we are expanding tax revenues to meet primary services, that I think it's possible, and this is something that we're going to have to spend some time on, to require the departments and agencies to actually absorb whatever rate increase salary adjustment is for the sides. That's going to be difficult for some, maybe not so difficult for others. What we really need to do is make an honest assessment of that between tentative and final adoption and ensure that we fund appropriately that salary increase where it's absolutely necessary. Because what we don't need to do is keep digging the hole by granting a raise and then not having the revenues to cover it. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a number of speakers, but before we move to the speakers, I want to welcome from the governor's office, I think that Bonnie Medler is here. There you are. Thanks for coming. With that, I will open the floor up to speakers. We will start with justice and law for the court system, essentially. And we have 5 speakers. In order, it will be Judge Simmons, then Chief Sanders, then Judge Adams, Ron Overholt, and Tony Helen. Judge Simmons.
Thank you. Chair Bronson, members of the Board of Supervisors, Mr. Huckleberry, I speak for almost 1,400 employees at the Superior Court, which includes the juvenile court, the clerk of the court. The court is essentially the culmination point for anything that is involved in the justice system. If you put more officers on the street, if you file more felony filings by the county attorney, if you change laws to make child welfare officers result in more dependency cases, you are going to increase the work of the courts. That is our job, and we are glad to do it. We have seen these increases over the last 2 years. Filings of felony charges are up 20% over the last 2 years. This affects pretrial services, probation, case management services, essentially every aspect of the court. We've had to shift judicial resources to meet the needs of the dependency cases in juvenile court. This is our job, and we are glad to do it. However, the compensation given to our employees does not appropriately reflect the work that they do. According to the county's own survey, county workers are paid about 1% below market. Court workers are paid 12% below market. This is not fair. Our employees responsible for public safety, our probation, surveillance, and juvenile detention officers have salaries that are significantly less than their counterparts across the state. Starting salaries for probation officers in Yuma County are $3,700 more than those in Pima County. In Pinal County, it's $9,700 difference. In Maricopa County, it is $11,700 difference for starting salaries. This is not fair. It is no wonder that our attrition rate is 20%, which is twice the government average. Judge Adam, Chief Sanders, Mr. Overholt, and Ms. Helen will speak to other inequities in the court. Of course, we support the 2% raise for our employees. Clearly, they need more. Inflation has gone up 9% since 2009. Wages have not increased that much. If we have to absorb the 2% raise in our budget, we will continue to carry at least a 15% vacancy rate, meaning our employees still have to do more with fewer resources. In addition, the cost of maintenance and operations, including water fountains and toilets and leases, have continued to increase. These extra expenses and absorbing an additional 2% in our budget also could threaten our commitment to specialty courts such as mental health court and drug court. These have provided great benefits to our criminal justice system. We are not asking for preferential treatment. We are simply saying that to carry out the critical missions of the court, we need to be treated on an equitable basis with other county employees and with other courts throughout the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
I'll be glad to answer any questions
Please,
now or later.
questions for the judge?
Madam Chair, when Judge Simmons came in to visit me, it is my understanding that they're comparable pay for comparable positions for other employees throughout the county. Their pay is actually higher than those that working in the Superior Court and the courts. Is that
Yes,
correct?
the average, your surveys have an average, you're about 1% below market, we're about 12%.
12% below. Okay, that's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Saunders.
Thank you. Chair Bronson, supervisors, Mr. Huckleberry and staff, thank you for hearing me this morning. My name is David Sanders and I'm the Chief Probation Officer for the Superior Court. I'm speaking on behalf of the department and all court employees and also on behalf of the court administrator who could not be here today because of an unavoidable conflict in his schedule. When I was appointed to the position of Chief Probation Officer 11 years ago, the staff was 313 strong. Today, the staff is 250, but the workload is greater. I'm not here, though, seeking additional staff. 11 years ago, when I was appointed, the department was plagued by lawsuits, appeals, grievances, an unflattering outside audit report. Today, we're not. 11 years ago, we were top-heavy with 6 division directors. I immediately reduced that to 3. Today, I have 3. 11 years ago, 65% of our probationers successfully completed probation. Today, that number is 78%. Our probation officers and surveillance officers and other court staff deserve all the credit. 11 years ago, a probation officer with 3 years on the job was paid $36,000. Today, a probation officer with 3 years on the job is paid $36,000 plus 2%, despite a 23% increase in the cost of living index over those same 11 years. In my 11 years, I've hired 369 staff to maintain a department of 250, a turnover rate over that period of 148%. 11 years ago, morale among probation staff was low. Unfortunately, today it still is, largely because of the lack of competitive pay. Personally, I'm a fiscal conservative. I don't need more staff to get the job done. I just want the court to be a good employer and offer competitive wages. Probation officers are experienced professionals with college degrees. Probation officers and surveillance officers are sworn peace officers. We are the court, we are justice, but we are also enforcement. We are the enforcement arm of the court. Our probation officers and surveillance officers have done everything we would want them to do, both in terms of public safety and better outcomes on probation. They supervise 7,500 convicted felons every year and complete nearly 5,000 pre-sentence reports to assist in sentencing. They and all court staff deserve our respect and fair compensation for the important work they do. For years, I've asked my staff to be patient while we do salary survey after salary survey. all showing that we are below market. When the court did its own salary survey in 2013, our hopes rose because the county survey mirrored the court surveys, not only in the probation department, but across all court divisions. Our optimism, though, is fading. Frankly, I think our foundation is cracking, and a once patient staff is losing confidence in leadership. I would therefore respectfully ask you to revisit the court's budget supplemental. Our request is relatively modest, and our strategy, as you recommended, is to achieve fair compensation not in 1 year, but over 3 years, knowing the many demands on your limited resources. You have expressed the greatest interest in salary compensation between Pima County and the counties of Pinal, Maricopa, and Yuma. I have with me the most up-to-date comps in that regard, and I would request permission to approach the clerk.
Please do.
Once again, thank you for hearing me.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Miller.
I had a question regarding what was driving, and I haven't been able to get an answer to this, but what is actually driving the increase in arrests in Pima County? And I know that would come from the Sheriff's Department, but possibly Mr. Huckleberry may know what is driving the increased arrests that is also driving your increased workload.
Well, any increase in the number of law enforcement officers is going to increase the number of arrests. So that's probably one factor. Another factor may be that the United States District Court and its U.S. Attorney is screening out many cases right now that might be diverted to Superior Court. Many crimes are violations of not only state law but federal law. Bank robbery, for example, drug offenses, for example, embezzlement, for example, could go to either court. And as the federal prosecutors, as the U.S. Attorney continues to raise prosecution standards for example, drug amounts or embezzlement amounts, those cases that they would otherwise take might be diverted to court.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just curious, did we increase the number of sheriff officers? I don't think we did we?
Madam Chair and Supervisor Miller, I think we have increased it about 2 years ago, but not by many. We still have the lowest ratio. So we're about 1.4 per thousand population, where other jurisdictions, some are in the 2 range and 3 range, and the city of Tucson's too low. And probably the greatest variable that drives the workload of the court is the number of law enforcement officers in the region. For example, this court, a Tucson police officer arrests someone, they end up in this system. And the same thing with War Valley, Marana, Sahuarita, Department of Public Safety. So it's typically the workload of the court is driven by 2 factors. Probably most important is number of law enforcement officers in the region, and the second is typically the prosecuting philosophy of the county attorney.
Mr. Huckleberry, Madam Chair, I was in a meeting with Mr. Burke yesterday, and he did explain that that is a mandate that the county provide those court services for the various jurisdictions. So I think that's something that's very important, that the audience knows that we are mandated to prosecute those cases from other jurisdictions at no cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller. Thank you, Chief. Judge Adams.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Bronson, members of the board, Mr. Huckleberry, and staff. Yesterday, leadership at the juvenile court was trained in the evidence-based practice that will be the cornerstone of juvenile justice for the state of Arizona. It's called Kids at Hope. Ultimately, everyone at the court, from detention officers to judges, will assume that every child can be successful rather than at risk. This notion is both extraordinarily simple and amazingly innovative. It costs nothing other than the expectation that how we think about children can change lives. Words are powerful. Last year at this time, I told you about our efforts to become a trauma-responsive court, doing no more harm to those who come before us who have already been battered by life. We completed a trauma audit of the entire system and will be working on the recommendations that we can accomplish for free. We now ask, what happened to you rather than what is wrong with you? Again, words are powerful. Our court-wide training begins by teaching staff how to avoid the serious negative consequences of dealing with trauma constantly. You can't help someone else unless you're helping yourself first. Our detention numbers continue to drop, but those in detention remain our hardest cases, not because of the seriousness of their offenses, but because of their high needs, social, emotional, and psychological. 1/3 of our detention population are dependent children. They are low risk. They have no place to go because there is such an extreme shortage of shelter and foster beds in Pima County, and that number is going to rise. We're dealing with a crushing child welfare caseload. They fill our calendars from the beginning of the day until the end. We continue to look for different ways of managing those cases and those families. Early and meaningful court engagement with families improves outcome for children and shortens the length of time those cases are open, but it is an uphill battle. These are more in a long list of ways that everyone at juvenile court continues to forward the mission of the court, to serve the children and families of the community in ways that will change lives without jeopardizing safety. Over and over, we have asked our employees to help us, and over, they have not only said yes, but what more can we do? We thank them with appreciation lunches, ice cream socials, handwritten notes, and how to stay emotionally healthy in the face of constant trauma. We need to do more than that. We need to pay them fairly. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Ron, Overholt.
Good morning, Chair Bronson, members of the board, Mr. Huckleberry, and staff. My name is Ron Overholt. I'm the Deputy Superior Court Administrator and currently sitting at the Juvenile Court. Mr. Steve Rubin, who was our Court Administrator, his last day was Friday, and so this is my second day. So here I am. We greatly appreciate your support of the courts. It's been a very tough 7 years, and we all recognize that. We've done our part in reducing our staffing and tightening our belts in terms of what we need to do. But we've reached a point now where our staff are so underpaid and non-competitive. We certainly can't compete with Maricopa County, we can't compete with Pinal County, and we can't even compete with Yuma County. So our salaries are a big concern. We did submit a supplemental budget request to you to try to adjust some of those based on market surveys where we are severely underpaid. I also wanted to mention our touchscreen security system that we have in our juvenile detention center. This is a 14-year-old. It's the original security system that was built when the facility was built. It's an analog system, and what it does is it allows one staff person to sit at a screen and open and close security doors throughout the facility. So it eliminates the necessity to have multiple staff at all these doors with keys to do that. But it's failing, and it's failing frequently, and sometimes more than once a day. It's an old analog system. It needs to be upgraded so that it can do its job. It provides some serious security and safety issues for our staff and for our children that are in detention. So we submitted a supplemental request. It's not recommended to you at this point. We ask respectfully that you reconsider that. It's about a $250,000 item that would replace those. It controls not only the opening and closing of doors, but the video throughout the system. So when it goes down, our staff are blind. It also affects the panic alarms in the courthouse and in the courtroom. So it's a very vital part of our security system. So we respectfully request that you reconsider that as well. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any possibility, I mean, it sounds like that does need to be replaced. Any grant opportunities out there that you've been able to identify?
We haven't found any grants for that purpose. We would certainly consider any options that are there. We've done Band-Aids as much as we can, but again, for an analog system.
I didn't know they even existed.
Well, yeah, it's sort of history.
It is history.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. And finally, the clerk of the court, Tony Helen.
Chair Bronson, supervisors, Mr. Huckleberry, and staff, good morning. Thank you for giving us a little bit of time. I'm Tony Helen, I'm clerk of the court, and my greatest asset are my employees. And they are grossly underpaid. They work hard, they deal with the public all day. Sometimes they watch domestic violence unfold right in front of them in one of our lobbies. They have access to very sensitive information. They handle $1.5 million every month. They have to pass a criminal background test just to be hired at an entry level. Again, grossly underpaid. Your survey in November showed that my support crew, about a third of my staff, is paid 20% below what similar positions are in other markets. I have cut my administrative team, my small administrative team, by 30%. And those of us who are left are moving as fast as we can move to get the workload done. We run lean, we stay within our budgets. Please reward departments that do that. We are one of those. Yes, I want my employees to have a raise, they deserve it. I cannot absorb it into my budget. I can't do it. I have two items to bring up. The passports that we processed for you in 2013 brought in $220,000 to the general fund. The consolidated collections unit we have brought in $5,070,304 to the general fund last year. I am here to ask you to consider to give me back about $250,000. When you decide what the salary package is going to be, whatever that annual amount is, to put that into my base budget. That's the only way I can handle some of these increases. So when you add those two things, that's basically $5.3 million that we have put into the general fund last year. I'm asking for $250 at the most, $1,000 back. Give me $250, I gave you $5.3 million. This is a small deal, any way you look at it. I don't mean to be flippant about it. Look, I understand. What I'm saying is I have responsibilities that are mandated by statutes, and I can't cut those. If I have to absorb another $250,000 in my budget as the proposed budget, I'll have to eliminate some of the things we do that are not mandated. And there are only two of those. I don't have any choice. They're passports and their collections. And if you all know anything about me, you know I will do absolutely everything possible before I ever start affecting my staff or cutting my staff. It's just not something I can do. They work hard for us. They've worked through these many years with very little compensation. So I support the court in the request that it has presented to you. I will continue to run a lean, efficient department, but I will not penalize my employees or the public that we serve. I understand the situation you're in. I appreciate that. I've been in that kind of situation before. So I appreciate your consideration and your time and not making a list. Thank you.
David Friel. And I want to remind the speakers that we need your name when you come up. And we ask that you abide by the rules of civility and that you make sure your testimony is pertinent and non-repetitive. Thank you.
Thank you. I am David Friel. I own A Aerial Tucson. I also own Friel Investments. I've been in Tucson for about 23 years. I've employed approximately 1,000 people in Arizona. I've been self-employed for 25 years. I'd like to talk about the property taxes and difficulty that I've come across. One was I own a piece of property, 5135 North Casa Grande Highway, which is on the freeway in Sunset, and it was seized by the Sheriff's Department. And for a year, I could not pay my property taxes because I had to pay a lawyer to defend myself because of the RICO Act. They just come in and take the land away. Currently, I spent more money on the attorney. I got the land back. And I'm a year behind on my property taxes. So I think there's some inefficiencies in the county attorney's office and the sheriff's department. The place was under surveillance for a year. At night, these illegal activities were happening. I was not there. I was named as a landowner. I was never arrested. And because of that situation, it has put me in a bind with my property taxes. Now the SBA is coming down on me because I'm in violation of my loan agreement. I fight very hard to pay all my taxes. We employ 7 people at the property, and we do approximately $500,000 a year in business, and we're current on all taxes except for property taxes. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Rahina, I think it's S-U-I-T-T? Suit. And then after Rahina, Betty Stopper.
We're actually
You're coming together? Okay. It's a sister act, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman Bronson. My name and members of the board. My name is Regina Suit, and I live at 8538 North La Westa in Tucson, 85704. I'm the Dean for Pima College Adult Education, and I've worked in this community in the field of adult education for about 25 years.
My name is Betty Stopper. I live at 5405 North Estelle, which is in zip code 18. I'm the executive director of Literacy Connects, formerly Literacy Volunteers of Tucson, and have worked here in Tucson in the field of literacy for 10 years. Literacy Connects provides programs for people of all ages, and through those programs for literacy and creative arts opens all sorts of new possibilities.
So we're here to tell you just a little bit about a group of us that have been meeting. So in 2007, Representative myself, Betty, representatives from the library, from the One Stop, and most recently Job Path, began to meet to discuss the needs to work together, to share information, to make sure that we weren't duplicating effort while we continue to address the literacy needs of our community. We call ourselves the Literate Worker Group.
And we've been meeting together monthly now for 7 years. And as a result, we have built very strong, trusting relationships, which has allowed us to really decrease the lack of continuity in adult education services here in Pima County. We have worked together to share resources, and instead of being competitive, as sometimes groups may be, we've gone the exact opposite direction. We really share resources, we have co-programmed, we co-train for one another, we share facilities. It's really been fabulous for all of our organizations, but most importantly for the adult learners in Pima County.
So mostly we're here today because in some way the Board of Supervisors supports every single one of those organizations that we listed off, the library, the Job Path, One Stop, Literacy Connects, and Adult Education in Pima College. And so we're here really to thank you, to make sure that you know that we're meeting together and that we're stretching our resources so that we can provide this continuum of services for learners in Pima County. So we're here to say thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Irina Urkitova. Did I pronounce that correctly?
I'm sorry?
Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes. I'm fine, thank you. Good morning. I am Leona O'Connor, the Pima County Interfaith Council Executive Team. I would like everyone who is in support of Job Path and PCIC to please remain standing while we speak. Job Path has graduated 1,300 people from poverty to good living wage jobs. This Wednesday, another 80 will graduate and celebrate their great accomplishments. They couldn't have succeeded without the past and future help of our Pima County Board of Supervisors. Thank you all for your previous support and hopefully for your continued support.
Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Elena Irkitova. I'm from Russia, and I'm so proud to be a Job Path participant. I want to tell you about Job Path and my experience in the Pathway program. Job Path breaks the cycle of poverty by helping adults to earn a living wage through a long-term job training. The graduation rate is 90%. Job Path sponsors unemployed and underemployed adults from Pima County who want to attend education and job training in the career areas where there are good jobs, for example, healthcare and aviation mechanics. Job Path participants receive many services such as case management and career counseling, financial assistance, and peer support groups. Who are Job Path participants? 52% on public assistance, 55% have children, and 50% were unemployed. Job Path has great outcomes. For 2013 graduates, the average pre-training salary was $7,000, and average post-training salary was $40,000. Tomorrow night, over 80 Job Path graduates will be celebrating their successful graduation from their programs. Job Path graduates all say the same thing.
Would ask that everybody will speak with
I'm sorry, yeah.
cell phones to quiet them.
Without Job Path, I could not have graduated and gotten my dream job. I also very much appreciate you making Pima County immigrant friendly by supporting Job Path program pathways for highly skilled immigrants that I participate in with others from 17 different countries. I arrived in the United States in 2006 to start a new life here. I had a hard time finding a job. Since I have been attending Job Path sessions, I have learned much about American workforce culture. And many of us volunteer in the community to say thank you for providing this program for immigrants. A friend of mine who came to this country with a background in health would only get a job as a teller at a check cashing agency. Because of Job Path, she is now Pima County Public Environmental Health Specialist. I would like to say thank you for supporting Job Path and investment in all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mary Murphy.
Good morning. Good morning. Mary Murphy, Green Valley. I know I just have to give my other side to the system since I've been in it recently. I am currently in it. Having been the defendant in 2 arrests down in Green Valley, keep in mind that I am a survivor of the 60s, the Chicago Democratic Convention, that police riot. I had a police riot in my kitchen. I was false arrested. I was booked into the county jail overnight. I wore the same outfit to the courthouse right back here when they told me that they had the venue wrong. I wasn't supposed to be in Tucson, I should be in Green Valley. So there's inefficiencies. I told the judge it gave me an excuse to dress up and come downtown. He said, and you look very nice. But you do not look like you belong here. And I did not. Then I got down to Green Valley, and it's got to do with, we've got poor police work, we've got internal affairs investigations. I'm meeting with attorneys this afternoon about some of the worst of it, and then we're going to take it all back to unincorporated Cook. I keep saying Cook, but Tom Dart, Cook County Sheriff, he is a wonderful example. He's the one in Congress talking about, the mental health component of so much of this. The Pima County Sheriff's Department, they thought, man, one morning, we're just going to have Sam Heck pay her an emergency visit. So there they are knocking at my door. I thought they were there to see if I was okay since my home had recently been vandalized with paint. No, they were there to evaluate me. I carry my mental health papers telling everyone I have no mental illnesses. I go nowhere without them. On January 8th, my homeowners association was attempting to have me committed, taken in and held on one of those psychiatric holds. When they were frustrated in that endeavor, they had me arrested that night. So I'm sitting in the county jail, not the nicest place. I asked if the next time I'm arrested, could I please go to the animal place? Please. But when, you know, there's a camaraderie of recidivism and everything else that I saw down there, I saw plenty. It was an opportunity. And those letters from St. Paul, we all have to remember that most of them came from prison. It was enlightening. But I see waste. If there are frivolous lawsuits, some of them start with frivolous arrests. I remember the best advice I ever heard when it came to law enforcement. You know, the big thing was try not to arrest anyone. Do your best to contain the situation. But anyways, Ms. Helen, my appeal has been filed on that conviction and the probation, and I compared everything going on. I compared it to the Taliban, and I'm not going to stand for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Leona O'Connor.
Oh, you were the, okay, sorry, Leona.
Deborah Ella.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Huckleberry, and staff, good morning. My name is Deborah Pella. I am a lead probation officer at the Pima County Adult Probation Department and president of the Pima County Probation Officers Association. We protect public safety while allowing probationers the opportunity to remain in the community and repay their victims. Most people, as you've heard, do probation successfully, but a minority do not. My letter to you documented our successes and the risks we face. It also provided examples of the contraband, weapons, and drugs we seize. I would have included the almost pound of methamphetamine, very high grade, that our East Side officers seized from a home of a person put on probation about a week before. But that case is now currently being prosecuted by the Pima County Attorney's Office. Many people in the community are not aware of our role, do not know we are there, and misunderstand our role. We are not therapists, because therapists are not injured arresting probationers. They do not respond to 24-hour GPS notifications to search for domestic violence and sex offenders who have violated their GPS conditions. They do not arrive at the home of a defendant placed on house arrest at 1 in the morning to check if they are there. We are certified peace officers with the power to arrest probationers for violations. This allows local and county law enforcement to remain on patrol. We receive extensive training in statutory law, interviewing, investigation, court procedures, firearms, and defensive tactics. Without us, the cost of the justice system would skyrocket. You've heard about the attrition and the high rates of turnover. Unless this situation is fixed, we are essentially allowing outside agencies to pick the pockets of Pima County taxpayers who have paid for these services and are entitled to expect the benefit. Our services are like infrastructure. They're like bridges, they're like roads. You cannot neglect them for too long before they crumble, injuring those they were designed to protect and causing more costs in the long run. In Arizona, the cost of community supervision is a shared responsibility. I ask you to consider the evidence placed before you and use the authority granted by you by Arizona statute to begin to remedy this shocking, dangerous, and unacceptable devaluation of our contributions to the community. Thank you.
Anna Shawarin.
Good morning, members. My name is Anna Shawarin.
Catherine, and my address is 2701 West Dub Road, 85746. I am an ambassador of education and a former GD student. I enrolled in GD classes 3 years ago, and last year I obtained my GD and graduated. I have been attending college since fall of last year, and I'm about to start my 3rd semester this summer. My goal is to transfer to the University of Arizona and obtain my PhD in clinical psychology and work for SACASA. I want to thank you this morning for supporting adult education. I am one of the 300 students that graduated last year. Thanks to the support that you have provided to adult education, people like me have the opportunity to pursue a higher education. And we have also the chance for a better life. Adult education is important in our community because it helps our citizens to become independent and provide them with working skills and leadership skills. In June 5th, we will have our yearly GD graduation ceremony, and once again, we are expecting 300 new students, 300 members of the community whose lives has been positively impacted by adult education. My prayer this morning is that you will continue to support adult education so that adult education continue to improve our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maya Castillo.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Elias.
Before Maya speaks, if I could just say thank you to you for coming up here and speaking to us from adult ed. Congratulations on getting your GED, and I wish you well in your studies. I know it takes a lot of courage to get up here and speak sometimes, you know, in a room full of judges and lawyers and all of this other crowd that we have here. You stand above everybody this morning.
If I may say, it's because of you, for the support that we have received from you.
Chair Bronson, members of the board, Mr. Huckleberry, I'm going to keep my comments brief. You have heard a number of times here in front of you and by email or by letter from SEIU Arizona. We are largely supportive of the proposed budget for the coming fiscal year. I do think it does take a realistic look at what it really takes to run Pima County in terms of money. And we are especially supportive of the adjustment in the secondary property tax for the libraries. You know that I'm from the libraries. I'm on leave from my job at the library, and anything that'll keep our libraries providing all the wonderful services that they can is a really great thing for our county. You know that we have continued to ask for a $1 per hour across the board increase, a buck chuck. And I'm here to reiterate that ask. I think we really need to continue to consider those who are making the least in Pima County. I know that the economic downturn was hard across the board for everyone, but we still have a number of employees who make very little, who are really pinching pennies, saving and selling cans, making a lot of sacrifices just to get to work. And that really is the basis for our ask. An increase that allows folks to actually take something home in their paychecks after a retirement system increase, after the small health insurance increase, so that folks don't get home on payday, people who work really, really hard for this county and for the taxpayers, and who are taxpayers themselves, and only see a quarter after their raise, which is generally what we've been seeing. Just want to mention that I have spoken to employees who are higher earners and largely are extremely supportive of something like this, where they just really understand that we need to help the people who make the least and move folks forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Castillo. I have no more speaker cards. Is there anyone in the audience that did not fill out a speaker card that wishes to address us? No one. I want to thank you all for coming and appreciate your comments. Yeah, this was just, well, this is the budget hearing, that item is coming up later. Okay. If there's no one else who wishes to address us on during these tentative budget hearings, what's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Miller.
I just had some general comments about the various items. I don't know if you want me to address them individually or just go through them all at once. They're not long.
Go ahead.
Okay. I guess my first concern is on the Flood Control District Board. That increase of $4.4 million. I know $2.1 million is being transferred over to Parks and Recs for maintenance of the river parks, which added 25 miles of Tucson parks, including river parks, including the Loop project. This is an area that will, I believe that we should not be increasing. And again, on the Improvement District Board, I believe those individuals voted for these improvement districts, so that would be fine with me. Library District Group Board, all other departments are being cut across the board in Pima County, so that's one that I would disagree with. And the Stadium District Board, one of the questions, I did have a question on this one for Mr. Huckleberry. It was originally bonded for $38 million, is that correct? And we owe $10 million. In discussions yesterday with the finance director, Mr. Burke, we were discussing the money that was borrowed against the jails for the stadium. So was that additional funding in addition to the $38 million that was bonded? Or no, it was not?
Madam Chair and Supervisor Miller, in issuing the certificate of participation for the financing of the stadium, we have to pledge collateral. And so what we did is pledge the collateral of the jail. And the jail has been built successively in a number of bond issues over the years. So there was a huge amount of principal available to really use it as security for the issuance of the stadium district debt. So that's what happens. You know, the stadium district, I hope we'll be out of debt by about 2017. So at that point, then we get a little relief and pressure with regard to the operating expenses.
And that those certificates of participation that were issued, were they in addition to the $38 million in bonds, or no?
No, those were that was the debt instrument. It wasn't general obligation bonds, it was certificates of participation.
That's how the stadium was built. Okay, it was not built with voter approval.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, I misunderstood that. And okay, I think that clarifies the majority of my questions. There are some areas in the budget that are not part of the decision packages that I guess when we get to that point for making the final decision that I think we can cut, but I know that is not for the discussions today. So thank you.
All right.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Elias.
I'd just like to say thank you to those folks who came, and I know they're not here, but especially the two judges who came. They've both been good presiding judges for Superior and for Juvenile, and they're both leaving the bench here at retirement. So they've been really good. They've done an outstanding job, and I hear the difficulties that they face. We need to recognize, like Chuck said, that the majority of our general fund dollars go into courts and operating those courts, and the last 7-8 years have really got us out of sorts with all kinds of things along the lines of employee compensation. I think we also ought to look a little closer at how that disparity happened with our courts employees, so that we can talk about that and understand it and make sure that that doesn't happen again, because that's a critical piece of all of this too. When it comes to employee compensation, I think we need to set tentative in a position that gives us a chance to approve those packages that Mr. Huckleberry has brought forward, even though he has left it up to us and not offered a recommendation on those. but I think we need to give ourselves enough latitude to make that decision in the coming weeks. I would also add that in terms of my own preference, I'd rather see 50 cents across the board for all our employees, because I think it's important to emphasize the raise this year that we are able to give, meager as it is, to those lower wage employees here at the county. They are suffering the most. We all know what's happening within our households and how rising prices have hurt us dramatically. It particularly hurts those county employees who are making $10 an hour, and we have a lot of them, ladies and gentlemen. So that's an important concept for us to think about here, I think, as we move forward into adopting our tentative budget.
All right, thank you. Procedurally, let us at this point then proceed first to the Flood Control District Board for the adoption of the tentative budget.
Madam Chair?
Supervisor Valdez.
I move the item number, close the public hearing and approve item number 7 at a tentative budget amount.
Did I put a card in? Did I put a card in for this?
You already spoke.
Oh, I had this one down too. Number.
Well, we had you speak for the, but that
I
was
put in
your
2
budget
cards.
hearing. Well, the budget hearings, we are now closing. You can,
Oh, okay.
call to public.
That's fine. Do I get 2 calls to the public then?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
thanks.
fine. Supervisor Valdez.
And I move close the public hearing and approve the Regional Flood Control District budget, tentative budget at $96,728 and a tentative tax rate of 0.3035. Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the Regional Flood Control District Board at $17,096,728 and an effective tax rate of 0.3035. Discussion?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Carroll.
Madam Chair, I have a question about the river park system. If Mr. Huckleberry could provide us before the final budget adoption a breakdown of the transference of costs for natural resources and parks over to flood control. And certainly, I'm sure there's some type of legal nexus to provide as well the background information to us to show that this is in part managing that system.
Yes, Madam Chair, Supervisor Carroll, we can provide you all of the detail, plus all of the legal obligations associated with the permitting. Plus, I think you'd be interested in the utilization of that public park, probably our most utilized public park in the county.
Thank you. And lastly, I know it's a very small drop in the bucket, but there's been some mention about the river parks holding opportunities for retail or kiosks, and I know it would be a huge revenue stream, but I was with the governor's assistant, Britton O'Brien, recently down in Green Valley, as well as Ms. Medler, and many of the things that we have in our budget today is going to be looked at by the state, and certainly this is one. And I think all of the state officials that realize the leap is what it is are happy to know that it's going to be probably in a better place to be well maintained and financed. But I do want to say, as far as the transportation improvements under the next budget on general fund, some comments reflecting also the governor's visit to Green Valley last week through Britton O'Brien and Bonnie Medler. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments, discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Roll call.
Supervisor Carroll.
Aye.
Supervisor Elias.
Aye.
Supervisor Miller.
No.
Supervisor Valdez.
Aye.
Chair Bronson.
Aye. Motion carries 4-1. Moving on to Improvement District Board and item 8. What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair?
Supervisor Valdez.
I move that we close the public hearing and approve item number 8 in the listed and published amounts in the agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to close public hearing and approve the Improvement District property tax levies at the amount listed on the agenda for improvement districts, other improvement districts, street lighting, street lighting improvement districts. Discussion? Objections? Well, no, we got to do, oh, we don't have to do roll call. Okay. There are no objection, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to the Library District Board, review and adoption of the Library District tentative budget for fiscal year 2014-2015. What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Carroll.
Madam Chair, I move to close the public hearing and approve the Library District Board for years 2014 and 2015.
At 37,770,000, no, not 37,000, I'm sorry. I think you just about did. At $37,772,853 for a tentative tax rate of 0.4353. Is that your motion, Supervisor Carroll? Is there a second?
Include the detail of the number.
Okay. There's motion and a second. Roll call.
Supervisor Carroll? Supervisor Elias?
Aye.
Supervisor Miller?
No.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chair Bronson?
Aye. Motion carries 4-1. Moving on to Stadium District Board, item 10, review and adoption of the Stadium District tentative budget for fiscal years 2014 and 2015. What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Valadez.
Madam Chair, I move that we close the public hearing on item number 10 and approve the Stadium District Board tentative budget at $5,253,097. Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing and approve the tentative Stadium District budget of $5,253,097. Objections?
Madam Chair, I object due to the additional investment in fields and building that we're doing out there when we cannot afford it. Thank you.
All right, let's quickly, just for the record, do roll call then.
Supervisor Carroll? Supervisor Elias?
Aye.
Supervisor Miller?
No.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chair Bronson?
Aye. Motion carries 3-2. Moving on to Board of Supervisors sitting in regular session. Review and adoption of the tentative county budget for fiscal year 2014-2015. What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Valadez.
I'd like to comment before I make the motion. I also agree with Supervisor Elias that I'd like to direct our staff to look at the 50 cent per hour increase for our employees rather than the 2.2%, and take a look at where that puts us in fiscally as we move towards final budget adoption. And also, and Mr. Huckleberry brought this out when he made his budget presentation, was that he was going to look between now and the final budget adoption to see which departments could and which, frankly, cannot continue to provide services should they be required to, within their own budgetary parameters, absorb this cost. So I look forward both to seeing that information, and certainly I was concerned that our clerk of the court was one of those departments when she talked about cutting divisions in her department that are frankly revenue generators for the general fund. So with that, I'd like to close the public hearing on item number 11 and move the item number 11 and the tentative budget at $1,188,464,253 and a tentative tax rate of 4.2779.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Supervisor Elias.
I just want to make sure that we have enough room to consider all those 6 packages as we go along in this. You know, I was pretty sure, but I just want the public to understand that the final number may be different than this, but it would be low from what we're talking about today. Should we decide not to fund one or more of those packages, right?
Yes, Madam Chair and Supervisor Elias, the rate at which this is the primary contains all 9 decision packages as well as the base adjustment to balance the budget.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Miller.
Excuse me. I'd like to express the same sentiment that both Supervisor Elias and Supervisor Valadez expressed, and specifically the courts. The fact that they're so much lower than I think what the market rate is, I think we should take a significant look at that one. And I also agree looking at the 50 cents per hour rate on those. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Carroll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Under road repair, I appreciate Mr. Elias confirming that there will be funding available. It's a $5 million cost, Mr. Huckleberry, for 2014, 2015. An obvious increase to the tax rate by 6.89 cents. That's confirmed. I do want to say that Bonnie Medler is here with the governor's office, as mentioned by the chair, but also the comments from Britton O'Brien regarding the HERF funds in the governor's budget this year. The governor had hoped, as mentioned earlier, not just by her aides and representatives, but by her as well, that the best chance would have been this year to restore the HERF funds, but still they could not manage to get it through the House and Senate, and there's been a $30 million dip. I just want to say that the local governments, according to Bonnie Medler's chief down here in Tucson, and that's Britton O'Brien, is going to be left to the next governor. So I hope people will keep that in mind in the next legislative session. But the final quote that I want you to know was spoken at this Green Valley event. A quote from Britton O'Brien is, "The problem is bigger than us here." This is referred back to the best chances for a referendum for more gas taxes, according to that official. And like the referendum in 2010, it's probably the only way you're going to be getting an increase in your transportation funding through the state.
A referendum or an initiative?
A referendum. And in 2010 it could be either statewide or countywide, but it's similar to the 2010 referendum. So it's again an issue that we should be thinking about, and we should be working with our other county officials across the state, as well as the County Supervisors Association. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Carroll. Supervisor Miller?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to clarify that that wasn't a $30 million cut to Pima County's portion of the HERF, that would be the total state share. Because my understanding is it's roughly $2 million this year. I think Mr. Burke, I was talking to Mr. Burke yesterday, and it was somewhere between 2 and 4 million. If I recollect correctly, it was not $30 million to Pima County, but to the whole state it would be $30 million.
Mr. Huckleberry.
The $30 million was what was restored out of the $120 million cut, or the diversion. So the $30 million trickles back down to every county, city, town, and I think our trickle down is about $1.2 million.
So we will be receiving additional funds then back this year. Thank you. That was the
So let me see, Madam Chair, if I get this right, because sounds kind of fuzzy. 118 million got swept, 30 million comes back, and our cut is what, 1.7, Chuck? Is that what you said?
I think it's about 1.2.
1.2. Oh, I overspoke. All right, just so long as I get it right, because it sounds like we're still getting burned.
Yes. There's no question about that. Any other comments from board members? If not, roll call.
Supervisor Carroll? Supervisor Elias?
Aye.
Supervisor Miller?
No.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chair Bronson?
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on finally to item 12, review and adoption of the debt service tentative budget for fiscal year 2014-15. Supervisor Valadez.
Madam Chair, I move that we close the public hearing for item number 12 and adopt the tentative budget for debt service of $114,953,822 and a tentative tax rate of 0.7000.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Roll call.
Supervisor Carroll?
Supervisor Elias?
Aye.
Supervisor Miller?
No.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chair Bronson?
Aye, motion carries 3-2. We're finished now with the Board of Supervisors tentative budget hearing and adoption. We're going to take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll proceed to the regular agenda.
The first one I got arrested was on a Tuesday. And I said, the saddest thing is I really don't have anything better to do. So I said, I gotta find everything to do on Tuesday. So here I am.
I'm Jeannie.
Hi, Jeannie.
Nice to meet you.
You picked a good meeting to start out with.
Yeah. Yeah, the budget meeting, I forgot all about it.
Yeah.
I thought it was next week.
You find us okay? Did Joe tell you that the guy starts something different?
Yeah.
Another Joe, yeah.
The Joe. Oh, in like a meter?
No, I parked at the parking lot.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah, it's pretty easy.
yeah. That was cool.
Yeah, later this afternoon we'll go through, we'll let them know what they hear and figure all that stuff out. And all the fun HR stuff.
Yeah. So did the increase?
The majority of the primary goes into 61 cents.
61 cents for every $100.
So it's like anywhere from like $100 to 480, I think is the highest we saw. Property taxes go.
Actually, no, we're not back to 20.
Clairvoyant, clairvoyant to
I
talk
was
to
almost
you.
back to what it was.
Yeah, sure. You want to do it here or do you
About $170. Over last year's $170.
Exactly.
And the year before it's
And the year
$50.
before, yeah.
So it's in the last 4 years, mom and dad paid an extra $500.
What do we see? I think it percentage-wise it increased 23% from 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going up. It's going up. It's, people don't think we pay attention. I pay attention. Especially my mom, because she sees it, she knows how much we pay, and we've gone through 3 appeals.
And I bet nothing's happened. Exactly.
Because they assess our property as if it's paper, not paper. So they continue to assess the property. And she's done 3 appeals, and she's you know what?
You should lay out some thumbtacks and some nails on the road so they're towards property. And say, hey, it's a dirt road.
Yeah, it's not as bad. It's not as bad as it used to be, or it's not like bad in Texas. In Texas, they use planes. And planes will file the properties and pictures of everything.
Yeah.
So in Texas, what they do is that anything that's shaved, they charge you fine. They'll increase it as the square footage. So even if it's just a little bit to cover the water heater outside or a little square, they'll charge you fine. Yeah.
Tricks of the trade.
Yeah, I've seen it happen. So. Oh, it's an award.
Yeah, deep end. To get you caught up on all the acronyms and
Oh, actually, I know a lot of these acronyms.
Yeah, you're a lot smarter than some of the people we get in.
Yeah, I know a lot of these acronyms. I have to go look them up, especially when I have to go. Well, I've been dealing with the county for probably 6 years now. My mom and dad, too, have been dealing with it for probably 10 years. So so we're kind of a little bit of this, that, but just the statute. A mess of things.
Hey, how are you? Nice to see you. Welcome aboard. How's it going?
Good.
How's it going for you? Good. Yeah, this isn't worth it. It's one way to They're more like on the debt service, he isn't doing any of that restructuring until next year. So that's why. Yep. Yeah, the words on it, like voting payments.
Secondary tax.
Hello, Mr. Dorson. Oh, yeah. Yeah, mine last year was about $400 or $500. Listen, I'm trying to think our house payment went up $200 a month. So it'll do about the same this year. That's huge. And then you add on the wastewater increase. TEP just did what, 6% rate increase?
They're going to do a rate increase on that?
They already did.
They did a rate increase.
Yeah. And then, you know, once they do that, then everybody's going to do 6 increase, which means everybody's going to go up.
Every rate increase. Right now,
It sucks to be a young person.
Yeah.
You know, when I got out of high school, though, it was like, it was during the, we actually had to line up to get gas at the gas tanks and wait in line, and you only get paid like so many dollars for it. That was the year I graduated, only a couple of years before I graduated from high school, so we'd be in line, and of course we had a friend that worked at the gas station, so we'd get our extra stick. It is really bad, Christy Simone telling people no. He just really infuriates me when he does that. I mean, it discourages people from coming. Christy Simone telling people not to come. You see what's here. You see why
We have camera.
Oh.
I can cut it.
Well, I don't care. Chris deserves a lot.
Chris needs a slap.
Christy Simone, this is for you. You deserve the official smackdown.
John Justice on stage. Well, I wait school, that's all I do is like, when you get there.
John Justice.
Yeah.
I can't show you. Isn't that cute?
It's a beautiful bag.
That is. It
This
looks just like a coat.
Just darling. Looks like a scarf free with some purchase on one of my catalogs or internet. I don't know which. This one's free. I don't get to use it very often, but I've got 2 gigs today. Second one's with lawyers.
That's no fun.
Oh no, it is for me though, Ms. Miller. It's crunch time. It's been coming to this. Everybody.
Well, hopefully you have somebody good representing you.
Well, so far I like him. He's very smart.
Who's your lawyer?
Well, I haven't retained him yet. But you might know the name, Vince Robago.
Oh, I've heard good things about him.
Yeah, well,
yeah. I don't know him.
He needs a legal assistant. So part of what I'm finding, he's very smart, but without someone to look after some
So you're
professional
interviewing?
sometime. Pardon me?
Are you interviewing?
Yes, with my case, the Pima, starting with the Pima County Sheriff's Department.
I work for an attorney in Hawaii.
I did when I was in college.
He was the guy who did all the drug deals, drug cases. So it was fascinating reading through all these trust fund kids that would go to Hawaii. I saw this one guy.
I could end up being his secretary or something because he's really a mess. You know, just a mess. They pay just to put things in chronological order. You know, I'm not as good as I used to be, but this is just one case, and this isn't even a half of it. He's not going to look at all this paperwork. I got all my deadlines for county, filing this, filing that. I said, but I can't close this deal. It's too big. There's too many entities. I said, and I might need a dream team.
You might. That is true. I'm used to it.
Like how I was for sneakers.
Nobody ever sees them from the waist down. Right?
Yeah.
From the waist down.
Callahan might do the same.
This newscaster, I don't know how long ago, it's 20 years ago. I was at the Haven Golf Course down there where my house is on the golf course. And he was golfing, and he was sitting on the beverage cart all the time during his golfing. Came in asking me about it. I'm like, well, I think she has a boyfriend, you know? I mean, but it was like, whoa, yeah. I'm like Mr. Newsman. Making news on my turf now.
Better get away from this camera.
Oh, did that get on your camera? I'm shooting for YouTube. I am Ms. Miller. I feel like the Blues Brothers.
We're making you
an
an internet star, Murphy. A YouTube star.
Well, someone has told me I have something's been on the internet. Some people, you know, with stuff back and forth about me. Mainly, they like laughing and giggling about my mental instability. They like calling me mentally unstable. And I'm like, I'm not. I have papers. Do you want to read them? I carry them with me all the time. I'm certifiably sane. I'm like this naturally. This is me. It's not crazy. They tried to get me locked up.
And then the last part was just an add-on.
Well, you've been here 5 minutes?
Zoom the meetings.
Yes, I did want to go. I think the only stuff that I have that she has to like see.
Yeah, so we gotta just have to go now. Tomorrow. Oh, it looks like some drop clip or something. Oh. Yeah.
All right, we're going to proceed to the regular agenda now. And we are on item 13. We're on consent calendar. This is a call to the public for consent calendar items only. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address us on items on the consent calendar at this time? If not, what's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Miller.
I'd like to pull consent calendar item 1 for a separate vote, please.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes, I move to pull consent item calendar 1 for a separate vote, please.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Let's proceed with item 1 then. Supervisor Miller. Are there any objections? If there are no objections, motion carries. We'll hear item 1 separately. Supervisor Miller.
Madam Chair, the question that I had on this was, it says it's Catholic Community Services doing business as Pima Decimal Center to provide for the transitional housing. However, in the background material, it says it's to be used for a community improvement center, and that's on page 18 of the background material. So if there's someone here that could explain whether it's going to be for transitional housing or a community improvement center, it's page 18 is where that is. Is there anyone that can explain that?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Huckleberry.
Yep. I don't have that particular page, so what you might do is just continue this, and we can get the information, because we don't have anyone here from neighborhood conservation.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor
Madam Chair, might we postpone this on today's agenda so we could request that maybe Mr.
I think that's what Mr. Huffman
Mr. just today, we don't want to delay it until the meeting of next. We'd like, could we hear it today? Is someone available that could come
We
down?
don't know that, is there anybody available? Will it be Margaret?
Yeah, it would be Margaret. We can make a call. That's fine.
Okay, let's just continue this and see if we can get someone to respond to Supervisor Miller's question.
I think with the
No
scrutiny
objection.
that's put behind the development block grants, it's probably at the fingertips of a staffer, so I look forward to hearing from them before the end of the meeting. If not, we'll just have to delay it until the next meeting.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Carroll. Moving on to the remaining items on the consent calendar, what's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Elias.
I'll go ahead and move the remainder of consent.
Second.
Motion and a second to move the remainder of consent. Are there objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving again back to the regular agenda. Item 15, Pima Vocational High School Charter Application and Resolution 2014-53. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
There's a motion and a second to approve item 15 and resolution 2014-53. Are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 16 and 17 under Industrial Development Authority and resolutions 2014-54 and 2014-55. Arizona Community Development Corporation La Paloma Academy Schools Project and Odyssey Preparatory Academy Goodyear Project. What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Miller.
I move to approve item 16, resolution number 2014-54, and item 17, resolution number 2014-55.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve items 16 and 17 in resolutions 2014-54 and 55. Objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to hearings, these are our hearings. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address us on items 18, 19, or 20?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Elias.
Seeing no one come forward, I'll move to close public hearing and approve items 18, 19, and 20, and recognize that item 18 is a fireworks permit for Walden Grove High School, and we should probably get an approval or look to the fire district captain to make a decision about whether that's a safe thing at the last minute so that we have a chance to protect our natural resources.
Okay, there's a motion.
I will second. I appreciate Mr. Elias's comment about the fireworks permits. We continue to be in a drought. This summer, fire and water, especially in the Green Valley area, are two of the most important issues that we'll face. So thank you, Mr. Elias, for that comment on 18, and I second the motion.
There's a motion and a second for items 18 through 20. Are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to item 21, Justice Court Cost Recovery Fees and ordinance number 2014-23. We have some speakers. We have.
Oh, this is what I got.
All right. Jaime Gutierrez. And again, your name and address, or your name for the record, and then you have 3 minutes.
Well, good morning, and thank you very much, Jaime Gutierrez, with Arizona Capital Consulting, representing the Arizona Multi-Housing Association. And it's tough coming up to you folks, especially after hearing your budgets. It reminded me when I was Deputy Director of the Pima County Juvenile Court Center many, many years ago, that the same issues in terms of our probation officers, our retention staff, were not getting paid even close to At that time, we compared it to the
Great state
adult
of America.
folks,
Yeah.
and then to Maricopa County. So I come here with a certain amount of trepidation and a certain amount of fear. And this issue obviously is an issue that affects a variety of people, especially if you're going to be filing civil action in court. Our request would be this, and I apologize for the lateness, but as an association, we've been having a lot of discussion of how we can proceed with this. We understand the need for money. We understand that you all are going to be moving into a new building, and there's cost and other things that that new building is going to require. The fact is, though, that your proposed increase in fees will make some of the fees the highest here in the state of Arizona, even higher than Maricopa County. And I understand there's not much sympathy for landlords. The fact is, again, majority of landlords are great folks to work with. I've been impressed with the professionalism that these folks try to bring to their organizations. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, there are going to be actions of forcible detainer. And so many times what's going to happen is if the tenant loses, that is the resident loses the case, there will be fees attached to the judgment. And so many times what you're going to be having is the resident that's going to have to pay for the fees because they lost the case. So what we're asking is if you can at least delay this for a few weeks. We have a number of challenges as we go and practice before Justice Court. Justices are great, but the fact is many times the hearings or the processes are very inconsistent. And so that inconsistency really causes us some concern. The other thing is that our lawyers think that there's a certain amount of efficiencies that they can propose to you. I had a brief discussion with Ellen Wheeler, who's been just great. But I also think that there are a certain amount of efficiencies that hopefully you all can listen to, certainly the suggestions that we would have.
Thank you. Mary Murphy?
This is the one I got mixed up. I talked.
Did you want to speak here?
It was the flood control thing I wanted to speak about. So you can put it into public.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
I don't want to mess up your
Got it.
agenda.
Then I have no more speakers. What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Elias.
you know, we did vote to approve this fee structure a couple weeks ago, and this is a ratification of it. So it is at the 95th hour, Mr. Gutierrez, but listening to you, I hear your comments, and they're not entirely about the fee structure, but also the way our courts operate. And you know, I'm willing to let it go for a couple of weeks if we can do that, so that we can come back and ratify again. It's going to be difficult to make changes to that fee schedule, but I think we're willing to listen to whatever we can do to help.
So you want to delay this until the first meeting in June?
I think that we can delay this till the first meeting in June, and we'll probably be okay. As I said, I don't think that throws anything off, but for the coming year. But I did want to say that, you know, judges have their sets of prerogatives, and we all understand that. But anything we can do to improve consistency for these folks is probably good for us all. And it's probably good for those folks who face eviction.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor and a second to continue this item until June 3rd. Are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to item 22, transportation and ordinance 2014-24. Now you can.
Good morning, supervisors, Chairwoman Bronson, staff, Administrator Huckleberry. Excuse me, my name is George Yost. I live in Vail. I'm here in support of Administrator Huckleberry's proposal, his memorandum to combine the Mountain View benefit area and the Rincon Valley benefit area into one benefit area called the Southeast Benefit Area It's my understanding that this will entail no additional cost, but it will provide extra efficiency in the county to move funds around to greater serve the traffic needs of the two areas to combine. So let me introduce the group that I'm with. We call ourselves the Greater Vale Civic League. We are a new group. In January of 2014, we formed a group. We only have about a dozen members so far, but we're getting additional members, and we're expanding our operations. We are going to incorporate as a nonprofit with the IRS. We are looking into that. We'll set up a website and that kind of thing. And what we are is a group of concerned citizens that are composed entirely of residents of Vail or those people who own or operate a business located in Vail. So we are exclusively confined to those people who have skin in the game. From the very beginning, we understood that if it was to be successful, our group needed to focus its efforts on improving the Greater Vail area by identifying issues, improvements, and projects that impact Vail residents and Vail businesses alike. Therefore, as I say, we're comprised exclusively of the Greater Vail area residents and businesses that have a vested interest in the community. So on behalf of this group, of this new group, which is still getting organized, as I say, we are requesting your support for Agenda Item 22, Ordinance Number 2014-24, relating to capital improvements funding within development fee benefit areas. The rapid growth over the last decade and the changing demographics in the Rincon Valley, Vail area have put a strain on the transportation system with increased congestion and safety concerns. The combining of these two benefit areas into a single benefit area represents another important step forward to provide the county with the flexibility that it needs to meet the growing safety needs of school access, businesses, and residents in the southeast portion of the county, including Colossal Cave Road. We recognize that road maintenance and repairs are a national, state, and local issue, and accessing adequate funds is a challenge. We greatly appreciate the efforts of the Board of Supervisors to obtain the requisite funding to address the congestion and safe travel concerns along Colossal Cave Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie Argueta.
My name is Jamie Argueta. I am a property owner in the Corona de Tucson area, have family that lives in Corona, and I am the president of an HOA with over 500 homes in Corona. I have been a part of the area for over 18 years. I am not here to speak to keep the county from solving the urgent problem of finding $3.6 million to construct the improvements for Colossal Cave Road. Let me repeat, I am not here to speak to keep the county from solving the urgent problem of finding $3.6 million, but to submit an alternative that does two important things. One, solves the existing problem, and two, allows for the intent of the county's original assessment for the need of a Mountain View benefit area to remain, a specific delineated area which has saved over $9.3 million over 11 years. The proposed merger of the Rincon Valley and Mountain View benefit areas will allow for the county to use those saved Mountain View funds and those future collected fees for Vail area road projects. I appreciate the county proposing to improve Houghton Road south of Sahuarita in the administrator's memo using the balance of funds. But that is not the entire issue. Corona will total over 6,000 homes in the future and be contributing at a minimum nearly $18 million additional dollars in impact fees. Fees that would provide hope that Houghton Road could someday be all-weather to I-10. But with a merger, Corona's future fees may never contribute to the solution of problems, sure to worsen as Corona continues to grow, since the new benefit area now has a list of projects that may be deemed a higher priority than Houghton Road south of I-10, a few of which are depicted on the handout. Why not look at a more fair solution? By redrawing the southern boundary of the Rincon Valley benefit area to include a portion of the Mountain View area, the county can shift the needed $3.6 million into Rincon Valley to correct the Colossal Cave Road issue. This would leave the rest of the Mountain View benefit area unmerged and allow for its existing and future impact fees to be utilized where Corona's new development is impacting the roadways most, which is largely Houghton Road to I-10. Today's merger puts the improvement of Houghton Road to I-10 in jeopardy for years, if not decades. This is a safety issue that should not be dismissed or ignored. It affects an area that has grown over 500% over the last 10 years. One final thought. If the county had already spent most of the fees collected in the Mountain View benefit area for Houghton Road, as some may argue should have happened, and had left a minimal amount of the fees in the benefit area account, would this merger even be a consideration today? And if the merger would not be an option, where else would the county look for funds to solve this problem? If assumedly nowhere else, then it seems the county should look to deal with these circumstances in a much fairer manner with those residents affected whose homes paid impact fees and new homes will pay impact fees. I urge you to consider the fair solution to this problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, if any?
Okay, Natalie Luna.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Board of Supervisors, Mr. Huckleberry. My name is Natalie Luna. I am the District Communications Specialist for the Vail School District. Appreciate your time this morning. I just wanted to, we came here a couple months ago about the Colossal Cave Road project, and I just wanted to thank the board for the support of this really needed funding for Colossal Cave Road that we have two schools on, Acacia Elementary and Old Vail Middle School. I invite you all to come out in the morning to come see, and in the afternoon to come see the traffic that we have. And really, it comes down to a basic student safety issue. We have a lot of kids that are walking to school, there's backup, and we just really want to thank you for your support and hope to continue to see that and see this project to fruition. So, thank you.
Thank you. I have no more speakers. What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Carroll.
Madam Chair, under transportation, number 22, the fee schedule, I'd like to close the public hearing and move to approve ordinance number 2014-24 relating to capital improvement funding with development fee benefit areas, adopting a new southeast benefit area, establishing roadway projects within the new benefit area.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Carroll first, and then Supervisor Miller.
Madam Chair, I make this motion today because we have what is a very important problem that is attempting to be solved. We have a chance here because there's a mutual benefit. At the campus of both the high schools, or both the schools mentioned by Natalie Luna Rose, we have UCHC, the Continental Clinic. Further on up Colossal Cave Road from I-10 towards Marianne Cleveland, you make a direct left and you go to Empire or Cienega Road, Cienega High School or Empire High School on Marianne Cleveland Road. These adjoining facilities serve Corona de Tucson. We have the very same school superintendent in both these existing benefit areas today. Of course, we have the same supervisor that represents both the areas today. But I do want you to know that the Board of Supervisors is needing this flexibility at this time to continue to benefit from the economies of scale on the Colossal Cave repairs, and also to provide better flexibility in the future for these leaders to make better decisions pertaining to the all-weather and other road conditions that reflect in the Vail and Corona de Tucson areas. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Carroll. Supervisor Miller.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to speak about my objections to this item. First of all, it adopts a new development fee benefit area by combining the two benefit areas, and I would like to quote from a 2005 memo from Mr. Huckleberry that there should be a very official review by the county attorney's office to deem that there should be more than just a technical issue and would require further legal analysis on disbanding or combining benefit areas and the subsequent distribution of fees collected therein. Due to statutory uncertainty, staff concludes that further legal analysis is required before any action is taken to modify benefit area boundaries. And another quote is, the staff concluded that further legal analysis is required before any action is taken to modify the benefit area boundaries originally adopted by ordinance in 1996. We also have these individuals from the Mountain View benefit area who will lose out on their monies that they paid, which is approximately somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 to $5,200 per home. My understanding is that the Colossal Cave Road is about 13 miles away. The schools are not the schools that the individuals in Mountain View send their children to. And the question is my understanding that those who live in the majority of the Mountain View area are not driving on the Colossal Cave Road. They live in Corona. And then regarding the Mountain View benefit area, my understanding is that area growing faster or slower than the Rincon benefit area. Residents in the Mountain View area, where it looks like the bulk of impact fees came from, aren't driving Colossal Cave roads. So how does that provide them with a direct benefit with Colossal Cave being repaired? By combining the benefit areas, we are setting a precedent, and quite frankly, this is a very slippery slope. Residents of the Mountain View area mainly live in a consolidated section of that area, yet combining these two areas could take their funds and distribute them over 30 miles away from the place where they live. How will we ensure that the property owners who paid those impact fees receive any future benefit from the capital improvements when the monies could be spent in other locations far off from where it was intended? The people of the Mountain View benefit area paid impact fees, and they should have capital improvements done directly in their area on the roads they travel regularly, not roads they do not travel on, often travel on, that are 10 miles away from the main bulk of the property owners. And that is on the map, clearly delineated on the maps of the area. And we also have a memo from the Southern Arizona Home Builders Association objecting to this as well. And these are comments that I'd like to make, and I believe everyone has a copy of this letter from the Southern Arizona Home Builders Association. I'm surprised they're not here to speak today to object to this item, and that concludes my remarks on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller. Mr. Huckleberry, do you have any comments?
Madam Chair and members of the board, I've recommended this item, and obviously I think what we said in 2005 is probably appropriate in 2014, but I believe it has been reviewed, and we've looked at these things previously. We've amended benefit areas in 2009. There are changing geographic and demographic issues with growth in the community. And I think if you look at the Colossal Cave Vale area, it grew very rapidly over the last probably 10 to 15 years and outstripped by a fairly significant amount the growth in the Mountain View benefit area. And so it all depends upon where you have your most critical need and as to how in fact you use the impact fees. The impact fees are for capacity improvements primarily. We've had some suggestions, I think, by the Mountain View developers to use it for drainage improvements. And kind of is an equally slippery slope with regard to the use of impact fees. And so I think our preference is to ensure they're used for exclusively for capacity, where we have congestion issues and safety issues. Colossal Cave clearly exhibits those characteristics. This is the southeast. This is not, combining the southeast with the southwest. And if you look at the map, the bigger problem coming down the road is ultimately getting city participation for Hilton Road improvements north, because the red lines is what the county is responsible for on Hilton Road, because that's the logical investment. The yellow dashes are what the city's obligated to make using their impact fees. Given the long-standing checkered area of state trust land in this area, meaning that it's not all available for development. You have very limited roadways, and as we see congestion grow on Interstate 10, which it's projected to do, you'll see people driving from the south, crossing the interstate, going up into the urban area to get to the west. And frankly, Wentworth Road and Colossal Cave make that connection ultimately up into the urban area. So I think the staff's recommendation remains basically the same.
Thank you. And I would, you made a statement about the city of Tucson and they have some responsibility for that roadway improvements in the area. And it begs, or it brings up a larger question, and I certainly can sympathize with the folks in Mountain View. We have a number of needs. We have very limited resources, and at some point we have to address the needs, and that's going to take additional monies, and we're going to have to find some way to fund these projects because there simply isn't enough. There are sufficient resources now in terms of the dollars to do what we would all like to do. So at some point that conversation needs to go on region-wide, and we can no longer say that there is sufficient, we have sufficient funding sources to meet our transportation needs, and that's the reality. Any other comments? If not, I'll call the question. Roll call.
Supervisor Carroll. Aye. Supervisor Reyes.
Aye.
Supervisor Miller.
No.
Supervisor Valdez.
Aye.
Chair Bronson.
Aye. Motion carries 4-1. That brings us to Addendum 1, Contract and Award under Procurement, Direct Select Award. What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Carroll.
Madam Chair, I appreciate the award of contract being put on the addendum agenda, and I'd like to move Direct Select Award of Contract number CT-TR-14-429 in an amount not to exceed $500,000 to Parsons Brinkerhoff, Inc. to provide civil engineering, design, and post-design services for the Colossal Cave, Acacia Elementary to Old Dale Middle School project.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. Roll call.
Supervisor Carroll.
Aye.
Supervisor Elias.
Aye.
Supervisor Miller.
No.
Supervisor Valdez.
Aye.
Chair Bronson.
Aye. Motion carries 4-1. I want to move back to the regular agenda and community under the consent calendar. Item number 1. Has staff responded? Do we have an answer?
Madam Chair, staff has not responded, but I've kind of looked at the material. I think what we did is substituted another document that actually leaned the correct property, and we have the wrong property leaned. And it is for transitional housing renovations at the Bias and Casitas apartments, and it's CPG funded.
So we would strike that paragraph A that says for improvement and furnishing of space to be used as a community center?
Yes.
Okay, then I move to accept that as amended.
Okay. All right, so we have motion.
Didn't we pass a motion to continue this item to our next meeting?
If we had to, but we were going to try to get.
Okay. I'm fine with that. I was just going to say an immediate reconsideration or something to ameliorate that, but if that's the way the motion was made, then I'm fine with moving forward with the item.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to move item 1, and there's a correction, with the correction to the exhibit. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. If there's no discussion, if there are no objection, motion carries. Moving on to call to the audience, Mary Murphy.
Hello again, Board. Mary Murphy in Green Valley. Can I pick up where I've mixed up on your agenda with the flood control?
Certainly, you've got your 3 minutes.
Tentative budget, okay. You guys know what I've had going on with flood control. I told you quite some time ago that I have no confidence in the drainage inspections or the people that contracted them. I've moved beyond the scope of these inspections to other areas. There is one, a primary wash that sticks in my memory. I believe it goes back, I think there was Army Corps of Engineer involvement. I cannot place the time frame. Ms. Shields has been contacted once again to help me pin it down. I think we have another culvert that's missing. And it's the flow of the wash out of the Santa Rita straight toward La Posada. And it's the worst piece of stretch of road around. It's on Old Nogales Highway. You can tell by all the little black squiggles and how big it is. It's just ready to be washed out. The business with, kind of too many things to think about here today. The inspections due this month. Traffic and Arroyos has said they're going to, Suzanne Shields is going to talk to them. No one will acknowledge the forensic find regarding the 1980 La Cañada bond fund and the work that was never done there. It's as if I didn't have enough things keeping me up at night. Now I have to concern myself with people headed for La Posada and roads that might wash out. I guess I just want to say to everybody in the whole area around Arizona, those do not enter when flooded signs, respect them. Let it cross your mind if you're thinking about it, that there may be no road beneath the water you're seeing flowing by. Don't chance it. I had to turn around. I'm not happy with flood control by any means. I hope it turns in, it could go to a grand jury indictment for all I care, for it to get straightened out. It's a mess. Thank you very much, but we'll be in touch. Did you guys meet in the summer?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Regular summer school. Now, do I get another public card or no?
No.
This is it?
This is
okay,
it.
Then I just got to wrap it up very quickly. A little moment of personal privilege on behalf of the American Legion, Post 66 and 131 in Green Valley. I would like to state my outrage at what is going on with our Veterans Affairs. I would go from here every Tuesday to meet a friend of mine over at the Veterans Home here on the grounds of the Tucson Hospital. I went the last time, he's not there. He's not in the hospital here in Tucson. I'm afraid he's been sent to Phoenix. And I'm praying for his life. He's a survivor of the Bataan Death March, where my father fought. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There are no further speakers, then without objection, this meeting stands adjourned.
Better call Raul's office and find out where that guy's at.
Raul
Yeah, yeah. Let him follow that. He's the one who's been hotter on the issue.
Oh, okay.
That's why I say that, because he can call the VA and figure
Why
out
would they
where.
send someone from Tucson to Phoenix?
You never know. You never know.
With
You
the
know,
stuff in the news, it's making me crazy.
the way things
I
are
love
sliced
this.
and diced in healthcare, you know, you don't know what kind of facilities are available at what hospital. It could be as simple as that, but just so
I
you
just want
feel
to know where he
comfortable.
is.
Right, I get it.
But they don't owe me anything because I'm just a friend.
Okay. You're not asking for private information.
No, this is where it goes.
Hey, good boy. All right, good.
Thanks, your brother.
Oh, that looks like our planet.
Isn't that cute? I like those little world things.
What was that show? Bobby's World or
Do
something?
you know who lost?
Where is a phone? Is there a phone anywhere around that I could use? Do you know?
Not outside.
I don't know.
Right this week.
Come back to that.
he did present early, but he was
No, that was very smart.
Wow.
Or hey, we'll just give you 3.6. Here you go.
yeah, just take it and take all of it.
We don't need it right
Well,
now.
how many weeks is it then until the next meeting? It sometimes seems so long. I miss you guys.
Why don't you call our office later this afternoon? Because I have the schedule up there.
Oh,
And I
okay.
can tell you the dates.
But it's the first 3 Tuesdays, right?
It
Or does it
changes a
changes
little
in the summer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll catch up
Yeah,
on
it
it.
might be just the first 2.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah,
I'm
just
going to
call us
get
this
that number
afternoon.
in. I thought I was
Yeah.
going to have a little more time today. Oh, the cost of putting us on a
Yeah,
bad
inflation
burner.
rates.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Miss Murphy.
Bye, up to date.
Thank you.